Welcome to the World Pulse Update, bringing you the latest news from around the world. In a landmark decision that will echo through the halls of government and the corridors of global commerce, the U.S. Supreme Court has dismantled the legal foundation for tariffs imposed during the Trump era. This ruling marks a pivotal moment in American legal and economic history, as the highest court in the land has effectively redrawn the boundaries of executive authority over international trade. By striking down these long-standing justifications, the court has fundamentally reshaped the scope of presidential power in trade, signaling a shift away from unilateral executive action and toward a more balanced approach involving Congress and the judiciary. This decision not only curtails the president's ability to impose sweeping tariffs, but also sets a precedent for future administrations, ensuring that trade policy will be subject to greater oversight and legal scrutiny. The immediate impact is profound. This decision brings an end to a decade characterized by economic protectionism, where tariffs and trade barriers became the tools of choice for addressing global competition. As these barriers fall, global supply chains are poised for significant realignment, and international alliances may be redefined as countries respond to a new era of open markets and increased competition. The tariffs, which primarily targeted China and several U.S. allies, were originally justified under decades-old trade laws, citing national security concerns and allegations of unfair trade practices. These measures sparked trade wars, disrupted industries, and led to retaliatory actions from trading partners, affecting everything from steel and aluminum to consumer electronics and agricultural products. Now, the Supreme Court's ruling directly challenges the validity of those justifications. This creates a dramatically new landscape for both businesses and policymakers, who must navigate a world where the legal basis for protectionist measures has been fundamentally altered. The decision compels lawmakers to revisit trade laws and encourages a more collaborative approach to crafting future trade policy. For industries across the nation, this ruling is a double-edged sword. Some sectors, particularly those reliant on global supply chains or export markets, may find relief as tariffs are lifted and international trade flows more freely. These businesses can now plan for growth and expansion, taking advantage of new opportunities in a less restrictive environment. However, other industries that benefited from tariff protections now face new challenges. Domestic manufacturers and workers who relied on these measures to shield them from foreign competition may experience increased pressure, leading to difficult decisions about production, employment, and investment. The transition will not be seamless, and the economic landscape will continue to evolve as stakeholders adjust to the new reality. As the dust settles, the future of U.S. trade policy stands at a critical juncture. This Supreme Court decision has sparked intense debate among lawmakers, economists, and business leaders about America's role in the global economy. Will the nation embrace a new era of free trade and international cooperation, or will it seek alternative ways to protect its industries and workers? One thing is certain: the gavel has fallen, and the next chapter in America's trade story is about to be written. During the Trump administration, tariffs, essentially taxes placed on imported goods, became a central pillar of U.S. economic policy. These tariffs were not just technical trade measures, they were wielded as powerful economic weapons designed to reshape the global trading landscape and assert American interests on the world stage. The administration argued that for too long, the U.S. had allowed other countries to take advantage of its open markets, leading to a loss of American jobs and a weakening of domestic industries. The primary goals were clear: protect U.S. industries from foreign competition, reduce the massive trade deficits, especially with China, and revive American manufacturing. By imposing tariffs, the administration hoped to level the playing field, making imported goods more expensive and giving American-made products a competitive edge. This approach was seen as a way to bring back jobs that had been lost to overseas factories and to restore pride in American manufacturing. The first major wave of tariffs began in 2018, targeting steel and aluminum imports from a range of countries. The administration cited national security concerns, arguing that a strong domestic steel and aluminum industry was vital for the country's defense. Soon after, a much broader set of tariffs was imposed on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, citing unfair trade practices, intellectual property theft, and forced technology transfers. These moves marked a dramatic escalation in the U.S.-China trade conflict. The strategy was ambitious: By making foreign goods more expensive, the administration hoped to encourage companies to invest in American factories, create new jobs, and boost local economies. Supporters pointed to new factory openings and a renewed focus on made-in-USA products as early signs of success. The tariffs were also intended to send a message to trading partners that the U.S. would no longer tolerate what it saw as unfair trade practices. However, the reality was more complicated. While some industries benefited, many U.S. businesses that relied on imported materials faced higher costs. These increased expenses were often passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. In response, countries like China, Canada, and the European Union imposed their own retaliatory tariffs on American goods, hitting U.S. farmers and manufacturers especially hard. American farmers in particular found themselves caught in the crossfire. Many lost access to key export markets, leading to unsold crops and financial hardship. Manufacturers, too, struggled with rising input costs and uncertainty about future trade rules. The ripple effects were felt across the economy, from rural communities to urban centers. The tariffs also disrupted global supply chains, causing delays, shortages, and confusion for businesses large and small. Companies scrambled to find new suppliers or relocate production, while legal challenges mounted in U.S. courts. The uncertainty made it difficult for businesses to plan for the future, and some investments were put on hold. The Trump administration's approach to tariffs sparked intense debate among economists, policymakers, and business leaders. Some argued that the tough stance was long overdue and necessary to protect American interests. Others warned that the costs outweighed the benefits and that the tariffs risked sparking a global trade war. The economic outcomes were mixed, with some sectors gaining and others losing ground. Ultimately, the legal battles over the administration's use of tariffs set the stage for a landmark Supreme Court decision. This ruling would have far-reaching implications for how future presidents could wield economic power in the name of national security and trade policy. In recent years, the question of how much power the president holds over trade policy has become a major legal battleground. Legal challenges to Trump-era tariffs brought this issue to the forefront, as critics and supporters alike debated the true extent of presidential authority. These tariffs, imposed on a wide range of imported goods, sparked lawsuits that questioned whether the executive branch had overstepped its constitutional boundaries. The courthouse steps became a stage for a much larger debate about the separation of powers in the United States. Plaintiffs, including importers and trade groups, argued that the president had exceeded the powers granted by the Constitution, which clearly assigns the regulation of commerce to Congress. They claimed that by unilaterally imposing tariffs, the executive branch was bypassing the legislative process and undermining the checks and balances that are fundamental to American democracy. Congressional hearings and legal arguments focused on whether the president's actions were justified or if they set a dangerous precedent for future administrations. Central to the debate were the trade laws the administration used to justify the tariffs. The president invoked national security as a reason for the sweeping measures, but critics argued that this rationale was stretched far beyond its intended purpose. Legal experts pored over statutes and precedents, analyzing whether the invocation of national security was appropriate or simply a convenient loophole to expand executive power. The legal challenge to tariffs on Chinese goods in particular brought procedural issues and allegations of executive overreach into sharp focus. Plaintiffs contended that the administration had failed to follow proper procedures and that the tariffs were not only economically damaging but also legally questionable. The case became a flashpoint in the ongoing debate over how trade policy should be crafted and who should have the final say. As the lawsuits made their way through the federal court system, judges issued a series of conflicting rulings. Some courts sided with the administration, while others found the tariffs to be an overreach of executive authority. This patchwork of decisions created uncertainty for businesses and lawmakers alike, ultimately leading to the Supreme Court's involvement to provide a definitive answer. At the heart of the case was a fundamental question: could the president effectively wage a trade war without explicit approval from Congress? The outcome would not only impact current trade policy, but also set a precedent for how future presidents might use, or potentially abuse, their powers in matters of international commerce. As the nation awaited the Supreme Court's decision, legal scholars, policymakers, and business leaders watched closely. The ruling promised to resolve deep legal disputes and clarify the boundaries between the executive and legislative branches when it comes to trade. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's ruling would redefine the balance of power in U.S. trade policy, shaping the relationship between the President and Congress for years to come. The decision would not only affect the immediate parties involved, but also influence how America conducts trade on the global stage, ensuring that the constitutional framework remains robust in the face of new economic challenges. The Supreme Court ruled the executive overstepped its authority with tariffs. The decision focused on the misuse of trade laws for national security and unfair practices. The court emphasized Congress's role in commerce, limiting broad executive power. Future administrations must provide clear evidence for national security claims. The ruling reasserts the separation of powers, impacting future trade policy. Dissenting justices warned of limiting presidential discretion in foreign policy. The Supreme Court's decision sparked varied reactions across industries. Sectors reliant on imports celebrated, anticipating lower costs and stable prices. Domestic steel and aluminum producers, however, feared increased foreign competition. Farmers faced uncertainty, balancing market access with reduced federal aid. The ruling reshapes economic dynamics, with industries adjusting to new realities. Trading partners welcomed the tariff reversal, seeking stable trade relations. Canada and the EU praised the decision, aiming for predictable trade rules. Mexico saw it as a positive step for cross-border supply chains. Despite relief, caution remains due to persistent protectionist sentiments in the U.S. allies watch for potential new trade barriers from Congress. The ruling offers a chance for renewed cooperation, but challenges persist. The global trading system's future depends on U.S. policy shifts. International reactions to the tariff reversal were measured. China viewed it as a win but remains wary of U.S. strategic competition. Asian economies hope for stability in trade networks. The WTO sees the decision as a boost for multilateral trade governance. The ruling may encourage the U.S. to re-engage in global trade frameworks. Allies and rivals alike are cautious, anticipating future U.S. trade policies. The decision marks a shift, but underlying tensions remain. The global economic landscape awaits America's next move. The Supreme Court's decision shifts trade policy power back to Congress. This change may lead to more deliberative, legislated trade actions. Future negotiations will rely on diplomacy and alliances, not unilateral tariffs. The ruling prompts a reevaluation of national security in economic terms. Congress may pursue targeted industrial policies over broad tariffs. The U.S. must decide its role in the global economy, balancing openness and protectionism. The decision redefines America's trade leadership approach. The path forward depends on political dynamics and consensus building. The Supreme Court's decision marks a pivotal moment in U.S. trade policy. It reasserts Congress's role in regulating commerce, challenging executive overreach. The ruling's economic impact is mixed, with industries adjusting to new realities. Trading partners welcome the decision but remain cautious of U.S. protectionism. The long-term implications suggest a shift towards legislated trade policies. The debate over America's global economic role continues. The decision changes the rules, but the future of U.S. trade remains uncertain.